Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our Splashdown number 11. So for today, this session will explore how innovative businesses and models and advanced geospatial tools can support decentralized nature-based solutions for urban stormwater management. We are happy to have you here. Join us to discover strategies and foster climate resilience, enhance water reuse, and promote collaborative partnerships. So today we have two fantastic speakers. We have Maria Wirth, who specializes in business models for NbS in urban stormwater and water management, and she advises on project development for water reuse and climate adaptation. Also, we have Dr. Chiara Lippera, who, together with Dr. Jan Friesen at the UFZ in Germany, developed tools for water-sensitive infrastructure planning. Really, thank you very much, you both, for being here. And you have 15 minutes, but you now can address it as better possible. To the audience, please put your questions in the chat. We're gonna have a dedicated slot for the discussion. So without further ado, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Laura. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation. I'm just gonna go into presenters mode. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting Splashdown webinar today, kind of combining the two very different sides of stormwater management. On the one hand, sort of the business models and implementation arrangements and institutional aspects and governance and stuff like that. And on the other hand, then it'll be interesting to to link it with the simulation tools that Maria Chiara is going to talk about. So let me give you an overview of what I'm going to present. So a little bit about the background and challenge, which you're all familiar with, and then focusing in on what business models can do for wider adoption, and provide a bit of an overview of business model typologies, and then a bunch of real-world business models examples, specifically for different types of partnerships for better stormwater, for NbS for stormwater management. Yeah, so why decentralized nature-based solutions for better stormwater management? So cities everywhere are experiencing the effects of climate change, as well as rapid urbanization. The storm events have intensified in many cities. The rainfall patterns are changing and are overwhelming traditional centralized sewer systems. Leading to things like more urban and polluted urban runoff, flood risks, and at the end of it, water pollution. We also have aging systems, and as I mentioned, changes of hazard processes that raise the need for more resilient and adaptable solutions. So perhaps the locations of hotspots of flood risks may have changed, or the combinations of hazard processes change. For example, in Austria, it used to be very seasonal. You know, when would we have a flood risk or intense rainfall? When do heat waves happen and stuff like that? And the only one that is still seasonal is avalanches. It doesn't happen outside of winter, but all the rest are all across the year, and that really has changed the requirements for managing stormwater, among other things. Yeah, decentralized nature-based solutions utilize natural processes to manage stormwater near its source, reducing runoff and enhancing water quality. So it can be placed from very small scales, right at the place where the stormwater runoff occurs, retaining it locally, treating it at the source, and reducing the runoff of polluted stormwater into urban water bodies. Nature-based solutions can help to tackle multiple urban challenges simultaneously. So on the one hand, they can manage stormwater, but they can also provide regenerative spaces and help to reduce urban heat. And you're all very familiar with the different types of decentralized nature-based solutions for stormwater management, such as rain gardens, green roofs, bioswales, permeable pavements, some of which we have also as pilots in MULTISOURCE. Okay. And how can innovative business models drive the adoption and long-term sustainability of these types of solutions? So there's a quite a good recognition, an increasing and very positive level of awareness that nature-based solutions can be very effective in reducing flood risks and treating stormwater, managing those issues. But there are some challenges that are of institutional and economic nature that prevent them from being the mainstream type of solution, the go-to type of solution. And that's where business models come in. So the challenges are questions around how to gain, how to access funding, how to work together with, which type of stakeholders in the complexity of the urban context where we have lots of different landowners, lots of different people like institutions and agencies responsible for different public services and infrastructures, public and private and so on. Within this complexity, you need to find an implementation arrangements and a financing arrangement that can basically help to provide this solution and sustain it over the long term. And business models outline how an organization creates, delivers, and captures values. That's the sort of standard basic definition of a business model. And in this context, it has the key components of, what are the values that the systems provide? Like, what are the different ecosystem services that, let's say, are the most important ones in that context? So it might be heat and it might be stormwater, for example. That's probably the most common combination of those multiple benefits. And then who and how are these services delivered? So what does the solution look like in terms of, technical aspects or the site, and also who's responsible for the planning and the construction and the maintenance, very importantly, so that it actually can deliver those ecosystem services over time. And then finally, capturing value. What is meant here is basically how, are there potential revenue streams, for example, for service provision. I will go a little bit more into that a little bit later. And there might be cost savings in particular. We're talking about NbS for stormwater management. They're very cost competitive and oftentimes mostly cheaper than expanding sewer systems. Yeah. Why else are business models important, or innovating business models in this regard? That's because nature-based solutions are a different type of water infrastructure, a water infrastructure asset. It's not the below ground canals or sewers and the end of pipe, management. It's across the city. It's on land that it belongs to a different agency, etc. Things I've mentioned. So yeah, it's a very different type of asset that needs to be managed in a different way. And then another core aspect, a core factor that sets it apart from other water infrastructures is that nature-based solutions can provide multiple benefits. which is an advantage and which is what makes them so sustainable and effective in overall, urban climate change adaptation. But it's also a challenge because, and this is something that was at the core actually of the conversations in the stakeholder workshop in Milan. We had a very interesting conversation about that basically the actors who, let's say, are responsible institutionally and legally for providing, water services for a city, are not necessarily permitted, or there's uncertainty and liability risks and things like that regarding providing other types of services and funding them. So that can be a challenge where stakeholders, where actors, certainly, and also in other cities, might turn away from for nature-based solutions because they say, okay, well, this is not really a water asset. It's actually urban greening. It's not my, I can't work on this basically by themselves. Yeah. So it needs tailored business models to enable collaboration and ensure long-term provision of ecosystem services. It's something I touched upon already. Yeah, business models that enable collaboration. That's the key aspect. And then finally, also nature-based solutions are very context-specific. So every, different, let's say, typology of urban space has a different set of actors who must collaborate in such a project at a larger scale. Yeah, and which also means that the implementation arrangements and business models can be highly diverse. And I've got some examples in the images here of, how diverse these NbS can be, and also which type of actors are involved in which way. So, for example, on the left here, we've got a bioswale along a road. So it's a typical, urban greening kind of space, but it might also fall under the purview of the, municipal authority responsible for the road management. And then on the second one, we've got a university campus. That's a little bit more straightforward because it might be in like an asset management company that's simply responsible for maintaining that. Then in the third picture, we've got a rain garden in a small town in Denmark. I think this was an elderly person's home, so it was, municipality, but also owned by a certain public entity. Then in the fourth image, we've got a public urinal, which is privately owned, but provided on a public space. So they're also, collaboration with the specific municipality, or in this case, actually, in this particular image, it's on a compound that belongs to the National Railroad Company. So, but actually, the counterpart in this case was an architecture expo. So again, three different possible actors that somehow need to be involved, and then the actual agreement might be with the third one I've mentioned. And then the fourth is neighborhood rain garden on a household, in a household garden. So highly diverse. Basically, the implementation arrangements or business models for decentralized water treatment, NbS, can be roughly clustered into 4 categories. Public-public partnership, that's where you'd have, let's say, the city of government council for roads collaborating with, the urban gardens, urban gardens management department, environment with roads and urban greening at the local municipality, perhaps. Then public-private partnership, that's where you have more or less 2 types. Let's say a project finance type of PPP, where you have like a public project sponsor, and then private financing, and then an executing partner, which might be a water utility typically. Or you have a concession model where the private company also has the right to finance themselves. So those are the two big types, very common generally in infrastructure. The third one would be public service on private property. So that's something that's a little bit more new, where let's say, well, there are more conventional ways of implementing this and newer ways. So a more established way would be where, let's say, a real estate project or a building complex has stormwater NbS on the property and provides this public service of managing stormwater, treating stormwater on site against some kind of form of agreement, or let's say in the traditional sense, if there might be a regulation related to a permit that they have to in fact retain a certain amount, a certain percentage of the, or even the whole amount of the rainfall on the property itself. And then newer ideas are to take this further, even to to wastewater management and water reuse, which are of course more innovative ways, but then really providing a public service at a higher level. And then purely private business model. That's, for example, if if a private real estate project implements it without, let's say, a directive from or a partnership with a public agency, or if a household implements it sort of on their own device. And in fact, often it's different types, a large number of different types. Let's say if we go in higher scales, there's many different actors that can be involved in one project, and then that might combine also multiple types of agreements and multiple types of business models in one project. And then we've got, in terms of revenue generation, we've got subscription or service models, fees for services, treatment, water provision, wastewater management, or outcome-based models, which is more related to water quality, or also discharge quantity, or leasing or rental models for very short-term things like units that can be transferred, which is probably less common in stormwater. Yeah, and basically, again, to illustrate the diversity of all the different types of business models that have been developed. Just a few examples. So for example, in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, they implemented a network of micro-urban wetlands for flood management. So this is an example of a public-private partnership. We've got typical project sponsors, the city of Rotterdam, then a water company, who is themselves also one of the project sponsors, meaning providing funding from water tariffs. There's an innovation subsidy from the national government, then several public and private actors, and in fact, the Horizon project that were engaged in planning. And then, design suppliers, private actors, but also research institutes, and then operation and maintenance conducted by the water company, the water and wastewater company, and a collaboration with research institutions and consultancy companies. So again, a relatively big group for the operation and maintenance across the city. And then a deal broker who coordinates all these different actors. Partners from Milan might know this better than me, certainly. But yeah, this is a very nice example also that I always like to present, the Colle Maggiore water park in Milan, because this is sort of takes the public-private partnership further through community involvement, extends it by community involvement. So again, here multiple purposes, in fact, flood protection, pollution control, a big recreational space, biodiversity, public education activities, and health and well-being. Yeah, the initiator was the regional authority of Lombardia, then Lombardia region providing funding, providing investment, and then a private foundation co-funding, and then the funding of the operation and maintenance by the city of Milan, and a initiative Adopt a Green Area, which is a city initiative to encourage local residents to sponsor green areas. So there was a very big community involvement component for the maintenance. Yeah, so this instrument of community co-sponsorship. And then our project partner, IRITA, was involved in engineering.
Sorry, Maria, 1 minute.
Oh, yes. Just a few more examples. Yeah, this is also a very nice project that actually in similar ways exists in other cities. And we have a few more slides. Where basically the city of Wrocław provided mini grants to citizens to set up stormwater retention, stormwater harvesting systems in their gardens. So this was not only NbS, this was rain gardens, tanks, absorbing wells. But basically, there are several of these types of programs in different cities in Europe and in the US and in Australia, because the stormwater management might not be sufficiently manageable with purely the public available space. So that's why these programs have emerged to encourage property owners to set up rainwater retention systems on their properties to basically increase that capacity. Yeah, and yes, in this case, there were these mini grants and also technical assistance and of course awareness raising about the relevance and importance and gaining attention. Yeah, and very high interest as just for reference in 2019. The total amount of grants were used up in 3 weeks. That was some kind of record, but generally a lot of interest. Not that much, not that many NbS in this particular case because of mindset barriers, but they may change that. In this case, it's a similar program and specifically for rain gardens. I'm going to go on because it's very similar, but just to illustrate that these programs have been very successful in different cities and globally. So this in particular in Melbourne, there were actually 10,000 rain gardens created between 2008 and 2013. And then they continued the program. I couldn't find any new numbers on that, but yeah, project leader Melbourne Water, so collaboration between the water company, city, and also the regional Victoria State government. Okay, this is also similar. I guess we're sharing the slides afterwards. Yeah, and then just some conclusions. Yeah, nature-based solution or some main takeaways. Nature-based solutions provide multiple services that stakeholders are paying for that are priorities, including stormwater. And the financial resources dedicated to nature-based solutions have definitely increased at regional levels, national levels, obviously EU, and also city levels, and also private levels, actually. Yeah, the type of land or asset ownership and the established asset management roles really determine the type of business model from the start. Looking at those 4 typologies from before, and an early and continuous involvement of local communities, public agencies, private partners is critical to build trust and ensure long-term success and ensure that the systems are managed adequately so that they can be effective in the longer term, but also be adapted. Yeah, and then I again wanted to highlight that there are lots of cases where stormwater retention NbS proved to be cheaper, where basically they were compared to a similar capacity of sewer expansion and proved to be cheaper. Yeah, and then even more so where the need for adaptability, so the changing of the rainfall patterns and changing of hotspots comes in, and actually the nature-based solutions are way more flexible. They can be modified at a much lower cost than big constructions, big concrete constructions. Yeah, but they're definitely the actors that I've spoken to keep telling me that there is the need for more cost-benefit assessments. Yeah, and regarding the citizen involvement programs, the main challenge there, although there's great interest and where there are awareness campaigns and grants available, there's a lot of interest, but there are still some mindset barriers. For example, that rain gardens might not work in a certain place because it's too hot or too cold or too dry or too wet. But then once there are some pilots, those mindsets are changed. Thank you. That's all
Great.
from my
Thank
side
you,
for now.
Maria. Thank you very much. Well, indeed, this is super interesting. And I think we also discussed this in one of our other splashdowns, those type of barriers when it's kind of like, yeah, like the uncertainty, what are the nature-based solutions that we could have in our community, or if like in the nearby neighborhoods. Definitely that is something that is of great interest, especially for the cities and local governments if they want to implement something new. So yeah, so let's keep on the conversation about that. But for the moment, Maria Chiara, now the floor is yours.
Yes, hi, thank you, Laura. So I'm going to share my screen. But I don't see the option to share my PowerPoint presentation. Okay.
It should be on the bottom, sorry, in the top right on your screen.
Because I mean, it tells me to share the entire screen, but not just the presentation.
Do you want to share it anyway, or should I help you with that?
Yeah, no, I can share this screen, but I hope it will not be confusing. So now do you see my presentation?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you again. And yeah, I'm going to cover now the part related to the geospatial planning of nature-based solutions for some water management. So I work at the Helmholtz Research Center in Germany, and within my working group, Water Sensitive Infrastructure Planning, group is led by Dr. Jan Friesen, and we can see here all the components of our group, me also. And basically our group develops spatial economic planning tools for water sensitive infrastructure planning. And so we have a set of tools that we are developing, from scenario planning to identification of regional treatment plant clusters, to sewer network generation, and also the must-be approach that we will see more in detail later. And as you see, some of these tools, they are already available in repositories as GitLab and GitHub, and this is because we want to make them open access. And the plan is also to have the latest tool we are developing within the MULTISOURCE project also published online. So why it is important to develop planning tools? So this is very important in order to inform the decision-making process already at the pre-feasibility stage. So as we see here from the graph, within the very first part of the project during the planning phase, we can influence the costs required during the course of the project. So it is very important to take informed decision and have a pre-feasibility analysis. And so our aim is to use the open urban geospatial data so that we can determine information that is essential at this stage, so such as the space requirements for the project and also the total cost. And also in this way, stakeholders can compare different strategies. So in this way, we can save costs of the project within the first phase, and we can facilitate the discussion among stakeholders. So now we see the case study we have been conducting within the MULTISOURCE project. So we have been working with the Colis catchment. This is in the Lyon metropolitan area in France. So we have been working in this area with the data of this area, also with our colleagues from INSA, the National Institute of Applied Sciences in Lyon. But first of all, what is combined sewer overflow? So when there are heavy precipitation, the sewer system is overloaded, and so the discharge that does not go to the treatment plant is directly discharged into river bodies, and of course the consequence are that also pollutants are discharged, and so we have consequent bad river quality. And so our colleagues, they have been simulating the combined sewer overflow following precipitation events, and within our project, we have developed scenarios to reduce this combined sewer overflow through nature-based solutions. So we see now here the definition of different scenarios that we have been developing. So these are all the strategies to reduce the combined sewer overflow, and we have different technologies, and also we have this technology at different spatial scales. So for the decentralized type of solution, the nature-based solutions are bioretention cells that can be implemented at the household level, and the equivalent gray solution is our infiltration shafts for some water retention and reuse. While for centralized solution that we can implement at the outlet of the urban catchment. So the equivalent green solution is the constructed wetland for the treatment of the combined sewer overflow, or the equivalent gray would be the retention treatment basin, which is also called CSO tank. So of course, for these scenarios to manage stormwater and reduce the combined sewer overflow, we want to provide numbers and data whether there is a space for the implementation in the urban catchment, and also what are the project costs of each strategy. So first of all, I have to explain what the urban block is. So this is the smallest unit where we can implement a decentralized nature-based solution. And basically, this is the area surrounded by roads and railways. So it can range from a single house to a complex of houses, or a park or agricultural field. And the potential NbS area can be assessed within this unit. And it's particularly helpful to plan decentralized NbS for water retention or infiltration, because this unit excludes the road runoff. So in this way, the nature-based solution that we can place within our urban block does not need further steps of treatment. So within the MULTISOURCE project, we have been developing automated routines to identify and delineate the urban blocks starting from the Cooley catchment, and also we have been using rotational search algorithms to define the potential NbS area, and we have done this by elaborating further geospatial products from the Land Monitoring Service, the DLR Institute, and OpenStreetMaps. And moreover, for each block, we have additional information such as the sealed, unsealed area, and population. So besides computing the block, we also have developed metrics in order to determine the retention potential with natural-based solutions for each block. So as an example, this is the percentage of the impervious runoff that is generated within the single block and that can be retained within the potential NbS area within the same block for in order to reuse the water for infiltration or reuse. So this percentage depends not only on the surface of the natural-based solution and also the sealed surface, but also on the depth of rain and the design parameters of the technologies. So when we have a retention potential which is higher than 100%, it means that we, or equal to 100%, it means that we have enough potential NbS area within the block to retain the runoff generated. While if we have a lower number, it means that the potential NbS area is insufficient to retain the local runoff. And also when we relate this indicator to the whole catchment, we can assess what is the contribution of the single block in retaining impervious runoff when it's compared to all the other blocks, and so the total runoff generated in the blocks composing the urban catchment. So in this way, we can determine the decentralization potential of each block, which will tell us here, as we see for an example, that this block can retain up to 10% of the urban catchment runoff, up to 30 millimeters of rain, after which, for a stronger precipitation, the NbS potential area will be not sufficient to contain the total runoff. And we can also identify which is the block that can contribute most in retaining local runoff. And this gives us a ranking of which blocks we can prioritize within the catchment. So we also can dimension, we also generate automated routines to dimension the bioretention cells, and this is done through an iterative procedure that compares the accumulated runoff volume within the bioretention cell to the accumulated infiltrated volume for the critical time occurring after the peak flow. And in this way, by automatically dimensioning all the potential NbS site of the urban catchment, we then also this is done by determining the minimum area for which there is no generation of the overflow. So we reduce the number of sites for the Cooley catchment, always taking this case study. We reduce the number of sites by determining which is the number of sites for which we can retain the runoff volume that is equivalent to the combined sewer overflow that we want to reduce. And we see here the final results that are the spatial economic scenarios. So these are the results to guide the decision-making process and also support the pre-feasibility analysis. So we see that we have here each dot is an hexagon is the simulated scenario with the extreme design event. So from 5 return period equivalent to this volume of stormwater to the 100-year event. And we see here all the scenario with the relative technology simulated. And in terms of our requirement, for example, here for a 100-year return period, we would have a space requirement given from 14 bioretention cells. No, I'm not sure if I have the pointer, but yeah, like we would have here a space requirement within the catchment of 14 bioretention cells that would manage to contain 22,000 cubic meter of runoff that are equivalent to the CSO overflow for this 100-year event period. And also, besides the dimensioned infrastructure and for all the technologies, we have also the project cost at the present value, which were determined through life cycle cost analysis. So considering construction and operation maintenance costs for a lifespan of 20 years, that we developed through these cost functions that we derive from data sets of projects delivered by Iridra. So we use the cost data for constructed wetland for combined sewer overflow. That was our scenario, and also for bioretention cells. And so in this way, decision makers can compare different strategies and assess space requirements and costs. So to conclude, our automated routines can identify location for natural-based solutions in the urban catchment based on open, publicly available data, which can be very helpful when data such as detailed hydraulic models are not available. And also our approach can facilitate the implementation of natural-based solutions and support pre-feasibility analysis when there is the need to increase the capacity of the urban drainage system and so implement natural-based solutions. Moreover, our work can serve as a basis for financing options, and we hope it will assist the renewal of the European Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, for which analysis tools are demanded to update wastewater management plans. Also, you can find more details on the publication we published last year. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Chiara. Wow, that's super interesting, and definitely this could be, and I'm sure it is a great tool that the local governments can also kind of like get more in touch with it. And if we can have further examples in the future, I think that it will be a great momentum to kind of like to overlap or replicate this type of like decision making supports for the local governments. So going in that direction, and I'm glad that we have like city representatives in the room, because my first question, and then if you guys, Julia, Francesca, you have any other questions, please unmute yourselves. I'll put it in the chat as you feel more comfortable doing it. But for starting this very brief discussion, I would like to kind of like merge these two topics into one question. And how you guys, Chiara, and Maria, do you see, for example, for the creation of business models in cities and in communities, let's call like a small group of citizens, they want to do some project, as you were mentioning in some examples on your presentation, Maria. How can we, for example, integrate this with this spatial tool that we could integrate these two things? How do you see it would be the way, for example, like this community want to develop this type of project? How should be, or in an ideal way, the way forward for them to move with this type of projects involving also the spatial identification?
I think it would probably be from the side of the city that they would identify where to take which measure, and then I suppose part of what the tool can do is it can identify the sites, right? It can identify the plots.
Yeah. I mean, I confirm on this, and yeah, I think the tool can really help to redirect financing in a specific sites, because I mean sometimes you know that you want to reduce those flooding events, and so you need more nature-based solutions, but actually like instead of having heavily distributed NbS finance everywhere, maybe you can municipalities can save costs by financing specific spots that can already that have enough capacity to retain this amount of stormwater. So maybe it can help to target specific site intervention, and so reducing costs instead of having maybe nature-based solutions in every backyard.
Yeah. And I think also something that would be that is very particularly valuable that comes out of it is identifying the capacity and the specific costs that are associated to that, because that helps to really measure or assess the cost effectiveness, and then much more easily be able to compare different solutions.
Yeah.
And also
I mean, what we have seen in our results is that when we have sites that can retain more runoff, we can then also reduce the costs. But of course, this would on the other side be kind of going to disadvantage the biodiversity aspects or the other ecosystem benefits than if you would have more distributed nature-based solutions. But I mean, I think this is an interesting aspect to take into consideration, like to weight the benefits with the project costs.
Is it possible to, you might have mentioned it, but is it possible to let's say to say, okay, a particular, if there's like a big park in a certain area that would be prioritized, and then to like say, okay, we're definitely going to use a certain amount of space of that park and of another particular compound, because it's institutionally more easy.
Yeah, because I mean, we have been included in our analysis these scaling effects of the project costs, so that I mean you would have like higher costs doing smaller interventions than like working on a site that would be like in a park. But at the same time, our analysis tool also consider, okay, like there is a park, but also what is the runoff that can be redirected within that park. So it will be prioritized a park in the case that there are also sealed surfaces from which enough runoff is generated that can be retained there.
Yeah.
Great.
And suppose then the like additionally, or then specific municipalities could be targeted with specific, like, I don't know, different ways of community engagement, either through those grant systems or more in Denmark, there was one example of a public-private partnership with building owners in an apartment building, for example. So I guess then, if you know the sites that you're going to target, becomes much more clear with who you need to operate, I guess, and then that's where the business model side becomes easier.
Yeah, I think this could really be an advantage if you have a big complex of houses, and then you could have shared cost of responsibilities among residents, and also the intervention would be more effective being on a larger scale than within one single maybe household.
Okay, great. Oh my God, that's super interesting. I think this conversation can move further. I don't know if you guys have any other questions for the speakers.
I
From
wanted
your
to
side?
just say hi to everyone. Sorry if I can open my webcam. And it's so nice to see you again. And I had a question, but I think with your discussion, it's already answered. And it's if you were able, you had the chance to integrate or compare your works more in terms of the costs that Maria Chiara mentioned in the last few slides, and what Maria is building up the business models. But I think, because I think the tool can be a great instrument to start a conversation to create a business model. And having already some data about the costs, it's interesting. And yeah, just that, but we can also discuss more in other occasion.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
haven't. I know that there was obviously interaction between the U of Z team and Toke, who was doing research on cost benefit data. But we haven't yet at this stage, where things are more advanced, we haven't interacted, I think, enough yet. And I think there's definitely some ways, perhaps, where we could disseminate, I don't know, together how this could be applied in like the chain of the evolution of a NbS program, and also how maybe what kind of scenarios call for which business models are applicable to which scenarios. That could also be another linkage.
Yeah, really, thank you, the both of you.
No, thank you, Francesca, also for the question. Well, looking at the time, this is also very interesting, and I would like to know more also. But for the moment, we are closing this session today. Thank you very much, both Marias. We are very happy to have you here, and definitely I'm very, very, very much interested in developing this kind of tools and also the interventions. I think for many, many local governments, this is kind of like the big question mark, and also communities. Like, how can we make these type of things, and how can we create a business model that is sustainable, but where? So then it's kind of like these questions. And I think we need to keep on going with this conversation. So like this, we can help citizens and local governments to develop things. And if it is in nature-based solutions, even better. Okay, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon in the next Splashdown session. So yeah, so keep like aware of our news, and see you in another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And Laura.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.